So assuming that you have a requirement of accessing environment variables on the client side, because in your build process you use a Docker image which is generated uh, only one time for all the environments, assuming like you have multiple environments like dev, staging and production, but your image is the same image is used across these environments, so you cannot hard code your environment properties in the image that is being built. You need these properties to be dynamic, so that on the client side you are able to access these property during the runtime. So this is what we are going to cover in this video, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Let me take you through the code. So this is our local .env file, and similar to this you will have different uh, environment variable values for each of the environment, and this is what we are going to access on the client side. And to understand the client setup, I am using a public config provider, and this is using a context that has been created. It does not hold anything in the beginning, and it is able to take the value. It is initializing this particular context based on the value it is receiving as a prop, right? And if you can see, like when this component is getting this prop, it is also having this public configs, and this is being used to initialize the context, and this is available across the whole application. So this is one utility file that we are going to use. So this has two functions. The first function is gonna basically hold all the environment properties that you are gonna access on the client side. These could be feature flags, environment variables, some values that you want to access on the client, and this utility function is being used here, and it returns us an object which contains all these properties initialized through the runtime environment variable on the server side. This as the file name indicates, this is get server side props. So this is gonna be a function which is gonna be run on the Next.js Node.js side, which is on the server side, and it will have access to these environment variables, and this is gonna be passed to the client. And how it is gonna be passed, I'm gonna take you through that. So yeah, take for example, this is one of our pages called first, and this is the primary usage of the utility function that I just showed you. So this syntax might look little weird, but to give a brief about this, it is trying to import and export the function at the same time, because we don't want to define this function in each of the page. We are gonna like use the utility function in most of the pages where this function is not wherever the function is the same, we are going to use the utility function. Wherever it differs, we will define it there and make use of some part of the utility function. So once this has been exported, what happens is this function will be called on that particular page. Whenever this page is loaded, this function will be called, and it will send these environment variables as a prop to this page. And if you understand how Next.js work, this function is common across all the pages. So what we are doing is we are accessing the public config which have been passed from the get server side props to our page here, and we are initializing the context based on that. So because of this, like all the components used within this page can access these public configs. And yeah, so that's what the setup is. So I'm quickly gonna show you how this will work. So imagine like we visit our first page, so we can directly access our public config from context. So we'll get all the values here. So what I have done here on this page is I have used a particular component which in turn is accessing the context and printing the values that are there in the config, and it is using some another component which is basically like stringifying the environment variables. Taking you to another scenario. So unlike our first page, which is directly using this utility function, there could be cases wherein like you had already defined get server side props, so you could have some props being passed already, something like this, but still you want your components within that page to access the environment variables. So you can access them like this, like uh, get the public configs, which will basically get the environment variables and attach it to the props for the but for this particular page. So what will happen is like this will be available in the context, because we are assigning it on this particular page. So whenever this page is loaded, app.tsx will assign these properties on the context by accessing it here and like initializing the context. So whenever second.tsx is initialized, these properties will be available. So same we are trying to access here. Then there are other properties which are available as a prop here, so we can access them directly without using a context. So we can directly use it here, or we can like pass it from prop to prop. If it is because this value is not available on the context, we will have to pass it down like this or like some other way. So yeah, and taking you okay, before I do the third page, I will show you how this will look. So taking here, so again it can access these environment variables from the context, and the other properties are passed as a page prop, and they can be accessed as well without the context. Okay, so the third example. So if you see how this page is different, is like there is no usage of get server side props here. Neither it is exporting the utility function, or neither it is defining its own. So what will happen in this case is that this the props of this particular page will not contain uh, these environment variables, the public configs that we were using in the first and second page. So what will happen is the prop will be empty. So if we visit the third page, you will not see any of the environment variable. It took me quite some time to figure this out, but I hope this was useful to you. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching.